Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. So we've got UFC 250 coming up this weekend, really good card. So as always we're going to discuss the card, break it down from bottom to top. As always, quick recap on the weekend just gone. So not a great weekend, we had two pre-bets, neither of them came in. Fortunately that they were only small bets, and hands up, they were two of the worst bets I can remember making, like back to back on the same card. We had Vince Morales for a unit, first calf kick, and his calf, I think he said when he went back to the corner after the first round, that first kick done his leg in, and that sunk that bet straight off the bat. And then we had half a unit on Shevchenko to win by decision. I didn't see that wrestling attack from Sandhagen coming in a million years. I mean, I had considered it when I done the breakdown, watched tape, but I just thought she'd have no success. I think she was 0-16 on takedowns in the UFC, and I remember doing tape and seeing her attempt takedowns, and she literally just bounced off people. Like, she just seemed to have no physicality. So I know we've seen her taken down by Modafferi, but you know, Modafferi's a very good grappler. I know she's not physically strong, but she's very good technically. She gets girls down. So I just didn't think Sandhagen would be able to replicate that, and obviously she could. So it was a bit of a disaster that end too. Yeah, I'm not happy with them bets at all. But as I always say, we can only learn from the losses. I will take them as learning lessons. I will evolve. You have to win or learn in this game. There's no point sulking, throwing your toys out the pram. You've got to take the L's, and you know they do come. As I always say every week on this podcast, guys, if you sign up for the service, you've got to sign up with the long-term view, because I can't win every week. It's impossible to win every week. What we can do is win long-term, so there are going to be losing weeks. And another thing that I always say is I never put a large percentage of my bankroll at risk, or recommend that any of my members do on a particular event. I mean, normally we're anywhere from a couple of units up to maybe a couple percent of your bankroll, up to 10% of your bankroll, absolute maximum. I'm not one of these that goes out recommending you're risking 20-30% of your bankroll. It's bankroll suicide. If you do have a bad event, you lose 30% of your bankroll. That's a third of your bankroll gone in one event. Like, that's apocalyptic for someone like me. Oh my god, I'd be a state for God knows how long if I lost a third of my bankroll over one event. So we are very disciplined with the way we approach. So we lost 1.5 units. You know, it was two crap bets. I admit that, regret them. I will learn and move on. But we only lost 1.5 units. It's not the end of the world. Live betting, it was a poor event for live betting. Literally only made 2 live bets over the whole event. We took Spike Carlisle at some point in round 2 as a slight favourite. He lost it. It was a unanimous decision, actually. I thought when they said it was unanimous, I thought Spike had got it, because I thought if Billy was going to get it, it was going to be a split. But I'd have to rewatch round 2. I'm not saying it was a robbery, it was a close fight. I did think Spike had edged round 2, but maybe my mind will change if I rewatch it. And then we managed to grab Augusto Sakai as a slight favourite. Again, I think it was round 2, and that came in. So we basically broke, very small loss on live bet, like 0.1 units. So, you know, basically broke even. And then the 1.5 unit loss on the pre-bets. But as I say, it's to be expected, guys. We can't win every week. You know, I'm going to take my lessons. I probably should have just passed on the event for any pre-bets. I didn't really see any particular value. You know, maybe I forced the Morales bet a little bit, but that's something I can only learn from and adjust and make sure I don't make that mistake again. So we're moving on to the UFC 250 card now. Just to reiterate, guys, if you do want to sign up for the service for 12 months, it's £195. Last year, members who bet £100 per unit or $100 per unit won £14,500 or dollars, depending on what currency you're in. So you got massive bang for your buck. This year's been so disrupted due to COVID. We've obviously had a couple of months off, so it's, you know, we've lost a couple of months. We're playing catch up at the moment in terms of the events, but it looks like we're going to have a clear slate now. Everything seems to be moving along in terms of combat events. They're being allowed in Las Vegas, which is perfect for the UFC because they've got the Apex there. They've also got this fight island that, I mean, nothing's been confirmed yet, but it sounds like that's still going ahead, and that's going to be a solution for the overseas fighters. Cards have been announced for all of June. I think there might be a week off, first week of July possibly. At the moment anyway, that might be filled up yet. And then I think we'll be getting International Fight Week, the second week of July. I don't think anything's been formally announced yet besides the one event, but I wonder if he will put on 2, possibly even 3 events for International Fight Week, like they used to do a few years back. So we have got the events back. Boxing's coming back as well, guys. That's going to be back from July. So I'd say by July, August at the latest, we should be back to normality in terms of the amount of events that we have the opportunity to bet on. It's just been one of them, hopefully, touch wood, once in a lifetime events that's, 2 months off, and then it's been a little bit bitty as we come back. But all the events that we normally bet on, across MMA, UFC, Bellator, and the boxing, and boxing's on most weeks, guys. Obviously, a lot of the boxing clashes with the UFC, so we can't live bet on a lot of the boxing, but we do live bet on all of the UK shows. And normally, once the boxing season's up and running, the UK shows are pretty much churned out on a weekly basis, so we normally have that before the UFC. So all these other things are starting to come back now, so hopefully the last 5 months will have a nice solid run. One thing as well that I wasn't sure of when I'd done the breakdowns last week, I had asked on Twitter but no one knew, so when I'd done the breakdowns I didn't know, and I assumed we would be having the normal cage size. It is the smaller cage in the Apex, so it's the 25 square feet octagon as opposed to the 30 foot square feet octagon. And I think we did see the difference on Saturday. That 5 foot makes a hell of a lot of difference. We were seeing a lot of finishes. There's a lot more action in the fights, so that's something we definitely need to bear in mind with our bets. Now, I don't want to change my strategy up completely, especially as this is a short-term measure, and maybe the event just gone, it was just one of those events where there was a lot of finishes, but I do feel that the smaller cage does change things, so that's something I'll definitely be pointing out in particular fights for this event, where I feel like the smaller cage will have an advantage to perhaps one fighter and a disadvantage to the other. But just back on the membership, guys, for 12 months, £195. Last year, as I said, £100 per unit or dollar members won 14,500. You can sign up on the website prommmabetting.com. There's packages available on there. You can sign up for weekly, monthly, 6 monthly, yearly. As I say, the service is designed as a long-term service, so you are best signing up longer term as opposed to a week or a month, because it's not going to give you a full flavour. We could have a great week, and then you're singing and dancing thinking, wow, this guy doesn't lose, and then we could lose the next week, and then you're like, oh, why did I sign up? You have to bear in mind there are losses. We can't win every week. Same with a monthly, it just doesn't really, we could have a great month, we could have a bad month. What you have to do is trust in the process. It's a long-term process. I like to take I call it a season, which for me is January through to December. It's 12 months. It's a year for me, is where you view the whole service and the whole value of the service. So you are best off signing up longer term. I'd say 95% of our members are with us for at least 6 months. Most of them are signed up for 12 months. We've got over 150 members now. The service is growing, and just bear that in mind when you are signing up. I appreciate you want to get a taste for the service, a lot of you, and you'd rather sign up for a month initially, but just when the results are coming in each week, just factor that in, guys. You need to think long term. I treat this like the stock market. There's peaks and troughs. Not every day is a winning day, not every week's a winning week. We do go up and we have some downs, but you have to trust the service long term, in terms of we do win long term. I've made life-changing money from betting on MMA. I've been able to give up my job, concentrate on this full time. I do a few little bits on the side away from MMA betting, just to have some different income streams, but this has changed my life completely. I've got minimal bills, I've hardly got a mortgage. I'm very comfortable every month. I could live off a very, very small salary if I wanted to live a very Spartan type lifestyle, and I pretty much do. I don't overindulge in too much. I really want to set myself up to really put my feet up if I want to in the next 10 years, but it has changed my life. But you have to treat your bankroll responsibly, guys. You need to keep it separate from your money that you pay your bills, etc. If you want to grow a bankroll, don't bet on other sports. If you don't have an edge in other sports, guys, stop doing it. Stop listening to people on the internet that are giving out tips. Stop getting pulled in by bookies giving you attractive odds on some silly accumulator or parlay, depending on where in the world you are and what it's called. Just stop betting on other sports if you aren't winning money on them. Just completely cut it out. I used to get tempted to bet on other sports, and I used to do it. I don't do it at all now. Completely cut it out. Save that bankroll, adjust your unit size as your bankroll increases, and reap the benefits. But you've got to bet responsibly, guys. There's no point going out and risking 30-40% of your bankroll in one UFC event. As I said earlier, you have one bad event, 30% of your bankroll gone, even more. It's just a disaster. So you have to be responsible, but you can use this money to change your life, whether it be to start up a side hustle, whether it is to invest in the stock market, whether it is to pay a lump sum off your mortgage, whatever it may be. It's a great opportunity for you to make some money and bring in some additional income. Even if you have no aspirations at that, it can pay for a couple of holidays a year, saves you having to use your credit card. How nice would that be? Just to, 2 holidays this year, lovely. Pay them off straight away. You haven't got to worry about paying back monthly and then with the interest that comes with it. Whatever your idea is, but just be responsible with the money. Just don't spunk it and don't give it back to the books, guys. Do not give it back to them, please. But that's enough of me talking on that aspect of things. Let's move on to UFC 250 and break down the card. I think the first fight on the card is Evan Dunham returning against Gilbert Burns' brother, Herbert Burns. But I haven't done tape on this one yet, guys, because it was only announced a couple of days ago and I've been looking at the card on the 13th. So I will have a look. The reason I didn't kind of jump all over doing tape on this is because in my head, stylistically, this is potentially a good fight for Evan Dunham. But on the flip side of that coin, I just don't think I want to bet him. He retired. He came out of retirement. He was meant to fight Michael Johnson, so this isn't some kind of ultra short notice fight. And he does look in good shape. I looked on his Instagram. He looks in good shape. But 38 is very old for a lightweight fighter. He did retire. He's not fought in a couple of years. And this fight's at 150 pounds, so he's going to be cut into 150 pounds. When did Evan Dunham last weigh 150 pounds? Literally, I reckon he was a teenager. So you've got a 38-year-old man that's going to be cutting down to 150 pounds for the first time in probably over 20 years. Retired, as I said, he's old. He got stopped to the body his last couple of fights. There's obviously some kind of weakness there. I mean, I'm not in love with Burns at all. He looked decent against Nate, but Evan is a good fighter. He's a tough guy. He's got a good style. He's a southpaw. He's got good boxing. He's always mixed in his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think he's only ever been submitted by Cerrone, and from memory, I'm sure he was hurt by strikes before Cerrone managed to catch him in a submission. So even though he's fighting Burns, he's a very good grappler. Dunham is very, very savvy on the floor. But it's just the X factors with Dunham and the red flags, whatever you want to call them. I've noticed some money has been coming in on Dunham. I did see the line come out. It did look wide to me. I think Burns was like minus 275. Let me just bring up the odds now. Burns is down to Bet Online. He's minus 200 now. So some money's been coming in on Evan Dunham, who's plus 170. Look, I think if you can get Evan Dunham plus 200 or better, and I don't know if you can anywhere now, I can see he's plus 190 at a few places. So, I think even plus 190, I would not go big, guys. I'd go 0.25 to half a unit, absolute max. Because just history has told me, guys that retire, come out of retirement, especially guys that are old, he's 38, guys that cut down at a very late stage of their career, it never ends. It never bodes well. It never ends well. Hardly ever anyway. Never say never, but it's just so rare for it to end well. So I'd just be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised, because Dunham does have a style that can give Burns problem, but just with all the red flags, it's a tough one, because the line look, I still think there's a little bit of value on Dunham. He's plus 190. I still think there's a little bit of value there. Burns should be the favourite, but he should be a smaller favourite. So, as I always say, this isn't I'm going to pick X to win because I think X wins. I always go on my picks based on where I feel there's value. And at the moment, at plus 190, I think Evan Dunham is the value side. So I'm going to pick Evan Dunham here, even though I'm going against my gut here because, no, I'm not picking Dunham, I'm picking Burns. But as a bettor, at the moment, I can't get plus 190. I can only get plus 170 at Bet Online, and that's just a pass for me. If he was plus 190, I'd probably stab it, but I'd keep it small. But no, I'm going to pick Burns just because history has told me that these fairy tale endings don't work well. Cutting down in weight very late in your career, coming back from retirement, this kind of stuff just doesn't work out. So I'm going to pick Burns, but if you can get plus 190, I can't fault you for having a stab at Evan Dunham. But for me, Burns, I'd need to do tape to really comment on if I think there's any value on, Dunham decision. I mean, Dunham decision is plus 380. Dunham's not a finisher. Let me just bring up his record. I don't think these lines are fully out yet, but it's at 5 dimes, and the other books will copy initially at least, and then money will start coming in. But let me just check Dunham's record. I'm sure he's not a finisher. Yeah, he's not a finisher. I mean, let's see when he last finished a fight. Whoa, jeez. Nick Lentz back in 2012, Dr. Stoppage. I think that was a cut, so that's not even really a proper stoppage. And then for his next one before that, you're going back to Efren Escudero back in 2010. So you know what, guys, I think there's some value on decision there. If you like Dunham, plus 380, if you can get that. I mean, you're obviously getting a good line on the money line, but if you don't get the plus 190 and it ends up, by the time you get to it, he's plus 160 or plus 150, I'd be tempted just to take it. If you can get that plus 380 kind of figure on Dunham decision, I'd be tempted just to take that, just small, because as I said, I wouldn't be going anywhere more than half a unit on Dunham in any capacity. I'd probably have kept it personally to like 0.25 units, but it's a pass fight for me on the current lines. But as I say, Dunham decision to me looks like it holds some value, and if you can get plus 190 or better, I think money line on Dunham holds value. I think if you end up seeing Burns shrink down to maybe the minus 160, minus 150 area, there's value on Burns then probably. So I'll pick Burns. I'm going to stick with my gut there and go with Burns. Next, we've got Alonzo Menifield taking on Devin Clark in the men's light heavyweight division. This is an interesting fight because there's still a lot of unknowns with Alonzo. He trains at a very good camp. He's at Fortis. We've seen him on the Contender Series. We saw him get taken down on the Contender Series. He's had 2 fights on the Contender Series. First one, the guy quit because he hurt his eye, but Alonzo did get taken down and held down for a portion of that first round. Was 3 years ago though, so I'm sure the guy's improved. Very quick win in his second Contender Series fight. Then he beat Vinicius Moreira and Paul Craig. 2 fighters that are pretty similar actually. Paul Craig's they actually fought and Paul Craig won, but they're kind of similar. It's hard to. What I need to know is how good is Alonzo's takedown defence now, and what's his get up going like, and I just don't have those answers. He managed to stuff Moreira, who managed to shoot in on him, get him on the cage, but he managed to reverse him. Paul Craig got in deep a couple of times on takedowns, and I think the cage saved Alonzo from being taken down on one of them. So Devin Clark is easily the best wrestler that Alonzo has faced. He's got very explosive double, so if he can get him down, can Alonzo get back to his feet? I just don't know. There's no tape to tell me that this guy can get back to his feet, but there's nothing to really. I can't read too much into stuff in Paul Craig takedown attempts or Vinicius Moreira takedown attempts. On the flip side, I don't love Devin Clark. I don't think he's an out-and-out fighter. You watch him fight, you know what he wants. He wants to get the takedown. He doesn't really want a piece of anyone on the feet. Can he get Alonzo down and win the decision here? He can probably get takedowns. Can he keep him grounded? It's a smaller cage, guys, so let's look at this fight from the small cage aspect. Who does that prefer? On the feet, it's advantage for Alonso because he's going to be able to find Clark easier. There's going to be less room for Clark to escape. On the other side, I mean, this probably benefits Alonso, actually. I was going to say that because Devin Clark's takedowns he likes the open space takedowns. He likes the double legs. I was going to say if Clark can push Alonso against the fence, then it's going to allow him to work his takedowns, and it's going to be easier for him to get him against the fence off a shot. But we saw Alonso defend the takedowns on the fence, so that's probably, he'd rather probably be defending the takedown on the fence as opposed to dealing with an explosive double in the middle of the cage. And also the smaller fence, you're more likely to be closer to the fence if you are taken down. So if you are capable of cage walking, the chances are you're going to be closer to the fence. But I've just got no idea if Alonso can cage walk or what his ability is to do that. So I think the smaller cage here probably favours Alonso for me, just because he will be able to find him easier on the feet. If he does get taken down, he is likely to be closer to the fence than if he was in the bigger octagon, and if he does have the ability to get up to his feet, then the cage may well be there for him where it possibly wouldn't be in the big octagon, especially when you look at Clark's takedowns and he likes the open space takedowns. But I can't bet Alonso. He was minus 200 somewhere just before I'd done tape, and I was thinking, oh, that might be a bet, but then I'd done the tape and I was just like, there's too many question marks over Alonso. I can't bet him here. Honestly, I don't like Devin Clark. As I say, I'm just not convinced about him standing. It's like he doesn't really want to be there, but he does have a path to victory here, and he's sitting at, he's plus 190 on some books, so I'm going to pick Devin Clark. He might get wasted very quickly. He might get taken out early. That would not shock me at all, because I don't like how Clark reacts on the feet. I don't think he likes being hit. I know it sounds a silly thing to say, but no one likes being hit. But there's certain fighters that you can just see that they're just very uncomfortable being hit. And Devin Clark is one of them for me, and that's not good when you're in a fist fight, especially if you can't get the fight to the mat. But I think he can, but I'm speculating. How much has Alonso's takedown defence improved? And what's his cardio like as well? Another thing to mention: Alonso hasn't been past, I think it's 1 or 2 minutes of round 2. So that's another thing to factor in here: is how will the cardio hold up if Alonso is dragged into a deep waters here? At least with Clark, we've seen him go the distance a few times. So I'll go with a value here on Clark. I don't really fancy betting him, just because, as I said, I just don't really like him as a fighter. But he's definitely got a style here that could potentially get him the win over Alonso. And I think the line's is too wide. It should be a closer line fight. So for me personally, I think the value's with Devin Clark. The over's set at 1.5. So if you do like Devin Clark, then it's highly likely that if he wins, it's probably a decision. So, the overs there at minus 125. It would give you a little bit of, if you took the over instead, then obviously it covers you in case Alonso gets a knockout in the second half of the fight, or if he, doesn't, if the fight goes to a decision, obviously. But and it doesn't matter who wins, but I just think the value's on the money line more than the over. It's plus 190. You're almost getting 2 to 1. So Clark, but I'm not confident. I wouldn't go big on it. I haven't even bet it myself, as I said, because I just don't like Clark's style, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets wiped out here. But I'm going to pick Clark based on where I think the value is. Next, we've got this is the last fight on the Fight Pass prelims. We've got Alex Perez taking on Jose Formiga. Where's Formiga at? This is the question now. He's 35 years of age. He's coming off that loss to Brandon Moreno. Now, I rewatched that fight because I bet Formiga in that fight, or before the fight. I actually had a pre-bet on him, a small pre-bet, and I rewatched it, and he would have got that decision if not for there was a really dodgy stand-up in round 1 from the referee. Now, Moreno had been on top, not really done much for the first few minutes. Then Formiga gets on top, a couple of minutes left, and the ref just randomly stands them up with about a minute left in the round. And if he'd left them alone, I don't think Moreno was getting up to his feet. They was in the middle of the cage. I think that round would have gone to Formiga, and then I think all the judges gave him round 3, so he would have got that. So that fight, what I'm trying to say is that fight was very close, and Formiga definitely could have won that fight. So it wasn't like he was blown away by Moreno or outclassed. But he is 35, he is a flyweight, he is getting up there in age. I mean, he still looked pretty scrambly and quick against Moreno, but Moreno is, he's someone that's improved a lot, and he's very scrambly on the mat. Formiga before that as well is coming off that knockout loss to Benavidez, but then a year ago he beat Figueiredo, so it's like, but he is at the tail end of his career, a 35-year-old flyweight. He's coming off back-to-back losses. This is a very hard fight for me to predict, just because with Alex Perez there is just basically no takedown defense evidence, no kind of scrambling evidence, not against a solid scrambler like Formiga anyway. He completely shut down Eric Shelton, but he was the one taking Shelton down. He just bullied him basically. I mean, Shelton is a wrestler. To shut him down like that was impressive. But otherwise, you just haven't really seen it tested. Mark De La Rosa, he just bullied. He's a physical guy. He's big for 125. Perez, you can see he's physically strong. Jordan Espinosa, a quick takedown and submission. But Formiga is the best grappler he's faced by a country mile. So on the feet, you're going to have... So you've got the small cage. I think this favours Perez because Perez is very aggressive. He's the one that's going to be moving forward. Formiga has decent takedowns. Now, the advantage for the smaller cage for Perez here is when he's trying to defend takedowns, especially if Formiga goes to the reverse body lock where he's so good at taking the back, is Perez he's going to instantly want to get to the fence, because as he gets to the fence, you can, if you haven't got your shoulders flat to the fence, if you're just leaning on the fence with one shoulder, you're at least blocking one of the hooks being put in by Formiga. And then what you can try and do is try and turn both shoulders so they're flat against the fence, which obviously your back isn't given up at all then, so it stops Formiga taking your back. So the smaller fence is going to give Perez the ability to try and get to the fence quicker than perhaps he otherwise would if Formiga is shooting in open space, if that makes sense, guys. So I think with the small cage, it's going to be more effective for Perez's striking because he is aggressive. It's going to be harder for Formiga to stay out the way. And I think from a defensive aspect, it's going to give him that ability to use defence as a defence mechanism, which we saw Moreno use. Formiga couldn't get the back on Moreno when he was against the fence. He had the control position with the reverse body lock, but just couldn't get the hooks in. So if Perez does feel like he's in danger of having his back taken, he's probably going to be fairly close to the fence, unless Formiga does catch him bang in the kind of middle of the octagon. So I think the smaller cage favours Perez here, but there's just that unknown with his takedown defence and scrambling ability against a guy like Formiga. Now I do like the angle of Perez being the younger guy here. He's only 20. He's 28, so he's 7 years younger. He's coming into his prime, and you've got Formiga that's probably going to start dropping off now. He's 35 years old for a bantamweight or a flyweight even. He relies on his speed in the scrambles, etc. And you saw Moreno was just, he managed to out-scramble Formiga, and Formiga dropped for a guillotine as well against Moreno in round 1, and that cost him the first round. That couple of minutes he spent on his back, and it was all because he jumped for that guillotine. So he needs to be sensible here against Perez. You can't be jumping for guillotines. I know he's a great jiu-jitsu player, but you're just going to needlessly put yourself on your back. And someone like Perez, very comfortable from top, he can probably grind out a few minutes on from top position. But this is a difficult fight from a betting perspective. I would be tempted by Perez if his price was lower, but I don't like betting on someone unless I think there's big value in the line. I don't like making a bet unless I feel I've got a full read, and I just don't on Perez because, as I keep saying, the takedown defence and the scrambling, it's just an unknown to me. He's going to have the physicality over Formiga, he's going to have the size. I think he wins the striking. He'll be the aggressive fighter. I think his tactic will be to keep it standing. I don't see him trying to take Formiga down like we normally see. So I do give him the edge on the feet. But if Formiga can get him down and take his back or get the top position, how does Perez deal with that? We just don't know. So I'm going to pick Perez just because I think he's the young lion that's entering his prime against a guy that's possibly going to start making a gradual decline. But it's definitely not a confident pick because of the unknowns, and I need a cheaper. I need Perez like minus 120, I think, to risk betting him. And he's been up. He's just held at minus 140 for a while now. The line hasn't really moved, so it'd be interesting to see if there's any movement this week. But at the minute, it's a pass. But I'm going to pick Perez, but I'm making assumptions there on that takedown defence and scrambling, because if Formiga can get him down or get his back, then that might be the round gone. So it's just a difficult one, but I do like the younger man angle here against a guy that's possibly going to start dropping off. Next up in the men's middleweight division, we've got Maki Pitolo, who's moving up to middleweight from welterweight here, taking on the returning Charles Byrd. I listened to Charles on James Lynch yesterday. I just wanted to get an idea as to, because he's nearly 37. I wanted to get an idea as to why he's been out 15 months. Was he retiring? Like, where's he at? And he said he had a car accident just after the loss to Edmund Shabazian. Literally, he said a couple of weeks after. He said he got bad whiplash. He said he couldn't train fully for it. He said it took him about 6 months to be able to confidently train. So he's been back for, I guess he must be back training properly now for the last 8-9 months. He said in the current world situation, he said he's been training a lot with a guy whose name I couldn't catch. I didn't recognise it, and Jeff Neal. He said he's been doing a lot of work with for this camp. So that was kind of, if you're looking to bet Charles Byrd, that was good to hear. He's taken on Maki Pitolo, who we saw make his UFC debut against Potter down at welterweight, and I had a bet on Pitolo there. I think I had 1.6 units on him, so I got minus 160. It might have been 1 unit I just risked, I can't remember. And oh my god, he looked dog shit. I was appalled by that bet. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was, from right at the start of the fight, it was like he was pulling his punches from the beginning because he was worried about gassing, but he still gassed anyway. When he was landing some nice combinations on Potter, but man, he was getting hit by everything Potter threw, and I did not have a high opinion of Potter at all. And to lose to that guy, he was engaging in the clinch with him when, the advantage Pitolo had was on the feet, and as I said, he was landing nice combinations, but he was kind of getting out-gritted. Like, Potter was landing the power shots on the feet, but that was still that was his path to victory. And then he gave Potter the clinch, like just dumb fight IQ. Potter got him down in the third round, just kept top control. Like, he re-engaged in the clinch. It was like, what are you doing? But he just looked awful. He's moving up to middleweight here, which is where he fought on the Contender Series, where he got a bizarre stand-in body shot KO win against Sumter, who I just do not rate at all. And he's coming back here at middleweight to take on Charles Byrd. So, Charles Byrd doesn't fill me with great confidence either. I think he might be a little bit chinny. On the Contender Series fight where he fought Wallace, he gets rocked by Wallace at one point, and then you go through to his UFC fights, he got stopped by Darren Stewart. Now, Darren Stewart cracks. That's not I'm not saying he's got a glass chin because Darren Stewart knocked him out, but then got hellbowed by Edmund Shabazian. So, and then rocked by Wallace as well. I'm definitely not convinced this guy's got a great chin, but what Charles Byrd does well is he's very explosive guy, really good athlete, very thick set legs. He can mix in his grappling well. His striking's decent enough. He's got quite kick-heavy attack. I'm sure he fights mostly out of a southpaw stance. It says orthodox on Fight Metric, but he can switch. But I'm sure he prefers southpaw. But he is quite kick-heavy. His stand-up looked really solid against Darren Stewart. You could see against Darren Stewart, he really had Stewart bamboozled that first round or so. He was mixing in his striking and his takedown attempts, and it was just making Stewart really hesitant, didn't know what was coming. He looked pretty solid until he got caught in that fight, and then the Shabazian fight over before it began. So I mean, you couldn't really take much from it because it was over so quick. And he's had the 15 months out. He is getting up there in age. So that's a red flag as well. But I have to pick Byrd here just based off of that Pitolo's UFC debut. It was just a disgusting performance in my eyes. Line's not great though. Byrd is minus 170 at the moment. You know, I've got my trust issues with Charles Byrd as well. Charles Byrd's not been past, I think it's round 2 for about 5 years, but albeit to me his cardio was looking okay against Wallace, who he stopped in round 2, and against Darren Stewart. It didn't look like he was fading to me. So, but I always like a fighter that I'm gonna bet. I like him to have been the 3 rounds recently, and to seeing how he looks over them full 3 rounds. Pitolo has won over 5 rounds. I've seen that fight before. He used a wrestling heavy approach. But I favour Byrd here. I think he's the faster guy. He's more explosive. I think he hits with more power, and he's got a good grappling game. We saw him use that in the Contender Series in both fights. That's how he won. Saw him use it against John Phillips. We saw him try and mix it in against Darren Stewart, but Darren Stewart's a strong physical guy. Charles Byrd he's got very thick set legs, but he doesn't look like a middleweight. He looks like more like a welterweight, but I guess, you know, he's 36, nearly 37. You know, it's just not a good idea to start cutting down weight now. So he's not a big middleweight, and he just struggled for the takedowns against Stewart. But like I said, he mixed in the strikes well with it. So I've got to pick Byrd here, but I'm just not in love with the price. I don't mind. The under is sitting. It's 1.5 rounds, so bear that in mind. But the under is sitting at plus 150. I don't think that's a bad price. You know, we're in the smaller cage, easier to find one another. Byrd's got a good submission game. He can crack on the feet, and he's not got a great chin, so Pitolo could catch him and put him out. So I don't mind the under there at plus 150. I think that should be possibly closer to an even line. But it's always a sweat when you bet an under, especially a 1.5. But I do like that, and I do like Byrd here, but I just feel the line's a little bit too wide for me to you know, minus 150 or so would have been great. But at the same time, I don't want to bet Pitolo, not after that performance or lack of performance against Potter. So I'm going to pick Charles Byrd here to finish this inside the distance. I'll go with a submission for Charles Byrd. Bantamweight next, we've got Cody Stamann taking on Brian Kelleher. It's a late notice fight for Brian. I can't remember who Cody was meant to fight. I'm pretty sure he was meant to be on this card already. Brian fought, we saw a couple of weeks ago, against Hunter Azure. I picked Brian in that fight purely based on value. I wasn't confident he was going to win, but he was decent sized underdog, and I thought the fight should have been a pick'em, and he came away with a victory. He was losing, but he's tough, he's a dog, he'll stay on a fight. He caught him with that big left hook and put him away. And guys, I think this line's off as well. I think this is too wide on Cody. Now I do favour Cody. I didn't have a great read on Hunter either. I do know what Cody's about, I know his game well, but I don't think he should be this big of a favourite. On the feet, yeah, Cody's the more athletic guy. He's faster. But the problem with Cody, he's not a finisher. He can't finish a fight, you know. So on the feet, I just don't see him deterring Kelleher. Kelleher is tough. He'll pressure you. And I don't think Cody's got the power to kind of make Brian think, oh, don't fancy this, I'm going to back off. I think Brian's going to keep coming at him, and again, it's at the small cage. Now Cody, of course, does have really, really good takedowns. One of the best double legs in the UFC, I'll go as far as saying. He's really times it well. Great double leg. He's not a chain wrestler. If you stuff that initial shot, you're probably stay on your feet, but he is really, really explosive with it. But the X factor here is Brian Kelleher has got a really good guillotine. Now, I'm really interested to see if Cody is going to shoot like he normally does here. Is he going to be worried about the guillotine? If he does shoot like he normally does and he gets caught up in it the first time, is that then going to stop him shooting again? There's potential trouble here for Cody in this fight. If he does get Brian down, this is the big unknown with Brian, is I went through a lot of his, I checked the stats on his UFC fights. I didn't really need to do too much tape on him because I taped him the other week. But there's just no evidence really of his takedown defence, and there's zero evidence of what he's like off of his back. The 2 times we have seen him taken down was against the European fighter whose name escapes me, Stasiak. But he used the guillotine threat to quickly reverse the position, and then against Alcantara, but again locked up the guillotine and he actually won the fight. So there's unknowns about if Cody can get him down, escape the guillotine, what is Brian going to be like getting back to his feet, because Cody isn't the best at maintaining top control. That's not his game. I know he done it against Song in his last fight in round 3, but Song had tired by then, that's why. Brian's a veteran, even though he's taken these fights on short notice. I don't think he's going to gas. I think he's pretty comfortable in there and throwing down Brian. I don't think he's slow. So it's an intriguing stylistic matchup for me. I get why people like Cody here. As I said, he's the faster guy. He's the more athletic guy. He can hit the takedowns. He can strike well. But Kelleher's a dog. I think the line is definitely too wide. I'm gonna pick Cody though, even though the line's too wide. I just think he is the more versatile guy. He's the better athlete. He is quicker. I think he's gonna win a decision here. And for me, the value on this fight for me personally is, if you like Cody, either, in my opinion, take the over, which that's been bet up a bit now. It was -225 yesterday. Now it's not. It's still cheaper than the money line. Or even look at the decision line. Cody is -140 by decision. For me, I would take that all day over Cody's money line here. So I'm going to go with Cody, but I wouldn't go big on it, guys, because I'm not 100% that Cody's going to look a -275 favourite here. There's some question marks for me in this fight. Brian's a dog, and people like to write him off, but the guy can fight. He can scrap. He's got a nasty guillotine. It's an interesting fight. So, but I'm going to pick Cody. Next fight we have in the men's middleweight division. We've got Ian Heinisch taking on Gerald Meerschaert. I taped this fight a couple of weeks ago, so my memory is not the best on this fight while I'm trying to recap it in my head, but I do remember coming away thinking it's going to be a close fight. Ian has changed things up. He's no longer at Factory X. I think up until March he was at Tiger Muay Thai. I'm not sure where he's been since the whole COVID situation and being back in America. I'm not sure where he's done his camp. What I did see in a lot of the comments when he was posting back in January, etc., is Gerald Meerschaert was commenting on a lot of them. So they seem to be pals, perhaps. I don't think they've trained together. I don't ever recall Ian being a Rufus Sport, but they seem to be quite pally. So I don't think that's going to affect the fight. Sometimes when couple of guys are pals, they get into a bit of a sparring match, but that's normally when they've trained together. I don't think that's the case here. Perhaps they've just know each other, I've seen each other at events over the years and so forth. But yeah, it's an interesting fight here because you've got Gerald Meerschaert is someone that is always underrated. You've got to be really careful with disrespecting him. He doesn't look the part. His fights, he doesn't go out there and kind of blow people away. He's always in competitive fights, but the guy wins fights. He knows how to win fights. You've got to be really careful underestimating him. A lot of people thought he won the Eric Anders fight where he lost a split decision. In between that fight, he beat Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles fought with one of the strangest game plans I've seen. And then his last fight, he beat Darren Wynn back in early March. Managed to hurt him on the feet in the 3rd round and finished him with a choke. Before that, he lost to Kevin Holland. Again, controversial decision. A lot of people thought Gerald won that fight as well. Before that, he did lose to Jack Hermansson, took a beating in that fight. And then before that, Oscar Piachotta beat him down for a round, but then he gassed out and Gerald came back. So, Gerald's a tough guy. He's only ever been stopped once by strikes, and that was against Thiago Santos. He's got a lot of submission losses, but they're all very early in his career. It's like he's turned the tide in that respect. He's got a very dangerous, opportunistic submission game from top. So his striking is okay. I mean, it seems to have improved, but Deron Wynn, just the guys are very small for middleweight. Kind of used his strikes well in that fight, but he done okay against Eric. I mean, Eric Anders won the first round. Outstruck Meerschaert easily. Meerschaert got hurt in the first round, but then Gerald managed to kind of find his timing, but he's quite slow. He's not the most athletic guy. Ian basically gets by on. He's not got the best stand-up, but he's aggressive. He'd be in your face. He sets a high pace. He gassed in the Derek Brunson fight. I don't know what happened there. I don't know whether it was he had an adrenaline dump in round 1 early when he went for the finish. He hurt Brunson. I don't know. It was bizarre because you watched Mutante and Carlos Jr. fights, and they're high-paced fights, and he wins them on pace. Basically, he basically out cardio Shoeface and Mutante, and then he's coming off the Amari Akhmedov loss. Tough fight. Amari, he swings with power. He's very physically strong. He's got solid wrestling, and these are things that Gerald doesn't have. He doesn't have the speed or power. Is he going to be able to take Ian down? He might get the odd takedown, but Ian's very good at scrambling, and that was Mutante and Shoeface's downfall. Is they're obviously grapplers, and they thought they could out-grapple Ian, and while they done well initially, it sapped their cardio because he scrambles really, really well. He out-scrambled both of them, and they're really good grapplers. So I'm interested to see Gerald's strategy here. Is he going to just try and strike with Ian, or will he try and mix in the grappling? Because there's always a chance he could snag a submission because he is very opportunistic, but Ian's really scrambly, and Gerald looked very tired against Kevin Holland. Now he actually won. He finished that fight strong. Like, I thought he won the third round. He pretty much controlled Holland for most of the round, but I don't know whether that was a case of Holland just being Holland, or Holland was tired, but he just maybe doesn't show it as much. But he definitely looked very tired in that Holland fight, which was a very scramble heavy affair. I just don't know what approach he's going to take here, because if he does go for the takedowns, it's going to turn into a scramble heavy affair. Ian, besides the Brunson fight, has looked fine in those kind of situations. On the feet, I don't like Ian's got a short reach. He has to crush the distance to land his shots. I don't love his stand up, but he's tough. He will put out a high pace, and I just see him out hustling Meerschaert here to probably win a decision. That's my gut take, but you've got to be careful underestimating Gerald Meerschaert. Ian at the moment, I'd like him as I'd bet him as a slight favourite. I'm not sure what way the money line's going to go here. The money came in on the end a good week or so ago, and it's pretty much held firm since. He's minus 120 at Bet Online. That's the cheapest price I'm seeing at the moment. Or Pinnacle is minus 117. I've got a feeling this line's going to trend towards even money, which then I'd be tempted to put something on Ian. I did see at Betfair Exchange that he was sitting at around even money. Let's have a quick look, see if it's still there. Ian 1.94. So yeah, he's not far short of even money at the Betfair Exchange. But just be careful. I wouldn't go big. You've got to make sure you don't underestimate Gerald Meerschaert. It might be a good live bet fight. But I lean Ian, but I want the price to come in, and I think Gerald will see some action this week. I can see that line evening up. The over is set at minus 180 roughly. I do think this goes to a decision. this line was at like the minus 150 or so yesterday, which I did like. Now it's starting to lose value, I feel, but I don't see a finish. Ian, I don't think he knocks out Gerald. He's only been stopped once. Gerald, could he nab a submission? Yeah, he definitely could, but Ian's shown really good scrambling ability against Shoeface and Mutanti, so maybe it still holds a little bit of value, the over, because I think that does see the scorecards. Last fight on the Fight Pass prelims is Alex Caceres, Chase Hooper. This is one of those fights where anything could happen. Chase Hooper is currently, he's been bet up to he's like minus 170 now, favourite. That's too much. You can't be betting Chase Hooper at that kind of price. It's too wide. But it's, for me to bet Alex Caceres, it's just, even at that number, I don't even know if I'm tempted. Look, the way this fight's going to play, if it stays on the feet for 3 rounds, Alex Caceres will win. Simple as. If Hooper can get takedowns, he'll probably get a submission. Alex Caceres he's prone throughout his career to ending up on his back, getting dominated on the mat and getting submitted normally. Chase Hooper, from his Contender Series fight to his fight against Gomez and on Titan and his UFC debut, you can see the kid's improved. I mean, his stand-up's still crap. He's still a bit of streaky bacon, but 2 years at that age, you can make huge leaps. And I don't care what anyone says, this guy is a nightmare on the mat. I mean, I used to hate rolling with long, skinny guys because they're like tentacles. Their legs, they just get everywhere. They're just a pain in the arse to grapple with, and you can see when he's grappling, you can just see people just like, God damn, this guy is just awkward as fuck. So I honestly think if he gets Caceres down, if he doesn't get the submission, he just dominates him. And you know, he managed to get Daniel Tamor down. There's no reason for me why he can't get Alex Caceres down. Caceres gets taken down in every fight. You know, every fight he ends up on his. But even like I went back and even watched the Cole Miller fight where he was winning comfortably, and even round 3 he ends up in all sorts of danger. Every fight he ends up in danger. Something happens to Alex Caceres every fight. And against someone like Hooper, I just think he gets subbed. So I'm going to pick Hooper. I wouldn't bet the money line guys because Hooper is still very, very raw on the feet. And if he can't get a takedown, he 100% loses his fight. So the line should be closer to a pick'em. But so really, based on the kind of how I run this podcast, I should be picking Alex Caceres here. But I'm not going against my gut here. I'm sticking to my gut this week. I've done it earlier with when I picked Burns, even though I feel that at the moment anyway there's value on Dunham, and the same here. I think that, you know, from a betting perspective, the value is with Alex Caceres, but I just think he's getting submitted. I really do. Submission line's not out for Hooper yet. I don't think it's going to pay much. Him to win inside the distance is plus 105. Submission line, I don't know, maybe it'd be plus 150. You might not even get that because he's not going to win with, well, I say he's not going to win with strikes. He went to that mounted triangle on Daniel Tamor and rained down the elbow, so you've got to be careful. But I wouldn't like getting, I think it's still too, like Hooper inside the distance plus 105. I think that's, you know, this is Chase Hooper. Yeah, he's got this dangerous ground game, but he is fighting Alex Caceres at the end of the day, so it's just one of them wacky fights. I think anyone that got on Hooper when he was like, I don't know, minus 140 or better, or even then it's probably not value actually. You've probably needed even money. Hooper a slight favourite, you've probably got yourself a good bet, but anything more steep than that, just because he's so one-dimensional, Hooper. But the UFC have given him Caceres for a reason here. They see it as his opportunity to get another W. So I'm gonna go with Hooper, even though the line's off and the value is with Caceres. I'm still picking Hooper because I just don't trust Caceres. He's just, you know, and he's 31 now. He's never going to improve. He is who he is, and Hooper's still improving. We're on to the main card now. So we've got Sean O'Malley, Eddie Wineland opening the main card. I love Sean O'Malley. I bet him against Andrei Sukhomtov I think I've got him as an underdog, and I bet him in his fight against Quinones. I had him in a double, an open parlay. In fact, I've still not closed because I think everything got shut down after the last event that O'Malley fought on. So The Quinones fight, O'Malley had been out a couple of years, so it's good to see him back so quickly. UFC, as I mentioned in the last fight, are giving O'Malley a bit of what they see as a potential showcase fight here. Eddie Wineland's not going to grapple with him. That's the big question mark with O'Malley, really, is how he's take down the fence and grappling and so forth is developing. So they've given him a straight firefight here with, Eddie Wineland's going to come in and he's going to bang. Look, the lines, I love betting O'Malley. Like I said, I've bet him his last two, but the line's just got out of hand here. That is minus 500 favourite. What's it going to close at? Is he going to get to minus 600? It does seem a very good fight for O'Malley, though. Wineland's up there in age now. He's had a couple of broken jaws. He did get wobbled in his last fight. I've not gone back and watched that fight yet. I bet Eddie in his last fight because I think he was the underdog or ever so small favourite against that guy that had fought absolutely no one. And one of my members pointed out that he did get wobbled in that last fight, and he uploaded a clip of it. And yeah, he does get wobbled at the start of the second round, so which doesn't fill me with confidence. So yeah, I think O'Malley wins this fight. What we was discussing was where there was value on this fight, and the over is set at 1.5. Now Eddie Wineland's only been knocked out for me once in his career. He's got 3 on his record. One of them was something to do with an injury. I've never seen it. It was early in his career. The other one was the Henan Burrell fight, which I don't agree with that stoppage at all. But Johnny Eduardo did put him out cold. It was I haven't gone back and rewatched it, but I'm sure it was an overhand right. One punch, took him out, broke his jaw as well. Sean O'Malley's not a huge puncher, but he has got good timing. He's got very dangerous kicks. Eddie Wineland does use that low guard. So the question here is there value on the over 1.5? Honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Where I did think there was some value was on O'Malley to win by decision. It's been bet down a little bit. It was at plus 300. It's at plus 270 at the moment. I don't think that's a bad bet. I mean, when it was at plus 300, you're talking 75% chance that if O'Malley wins, it's by a KO, and I think that's too high. I don't think O'Malley is going to be this wrecking ball, knocking people out. As I said, he has got good time, and I remember he did hurt Sukentov a few times. So Sukentov is very durable. I don't think he's ever been KO'd. So, and he did have him hurt. I think it was towards the end of round 1, had him pretty badly hurt, but he couldn't get Sukentov out of there. So he does, and that's a few years ago. What improvements has O'Malley made? The Quinones fight was over so quick. It was difficult to really kind of digest where O'Malley's at. So, is there value on the A? I don't know if there is, actually. I did like it at first, but the more I thought about it, Eddie's old. He's had 2 broken jaws. Hands low. I can just see him eating a head kick or something. But there's definitely no value on the money line. But I'm going to pick O'Malley here because I'm high on him and he's being given a great stylistic fight here. Next we've got Rocco Martin taking on Neil Magny. Men's welterweight division. Really good fight this. Rocco's looked really good since he's moved up to welterweight. He's unbeaten. Reeled off win over win. He's beaten the likes of Ryan LaFair. He's coming off a victory over Amiv, which was a solid win for him. He's basically developed into a bit of a counter striker. Well, I wouldn't say a counter striker. I mean, he depends on who he's facing. He will either move forward if he can, or he'll move back if he has to. But he's developed a really good calf kick. It's become a big weapon for him at welterweight. He's used it well. I think ever since the Jake Matthews fight, he started to use it really well. Really jeopardised Jake Matthews, which was the beginning of the end. He took Matthews' calf out at the start of the 3rd round, just as Matthews was about to shoot, and it allowed him to lock in the submission. And he used it against Amiv as well. Amiv's calf swelled up very badly in that fight. And I think he used it against Sergio Moraes pretty well as well. So it's definitely become a potent weapon for him. I said he's unbeaten at welterweight. He's not. He did take that loss to Damian Maia where he dropped the first couple of rounds. Just got, as everyone does, out wrestled and taken down. But welterweight was definitely the right move for him. His cardio's looked better. He's not draining his body. He trains at American Top Team, but he's at the other American Top Team. Like, he trains with the Lima brothers. He's not at the main facility. But yeah, he's developed into a solid striker. He's literally gone for no takedowns at welterweight. He's just been happy striking with everyone. He's got a good right hand, good calf kick, but he's a little bit low volume. That's the one knock on him. I mean, he's gotten away with it so far, but he's got a very much different stylistic fight here at welterweight. The guys he's fought so far have been, I mean, you had like Nakamura and LaFleur. Nakamura, yeah, solid fighter, but he's no longer in the UFC. LaFleur retired straight afterwards. Sergio Moraes, I mean, I don't know what is going on with that guy. His last 3 fights, he's looked awful. Decent win over Jake Matthews and a good win over Ramazan Emeev. But all these guys are fairly flat-footed. Neil Magny is someone that does move around on his feet a lot more. Will use kind of more of an in-and-out strategy. He's got a big reach advantage over Martin as well. I think it's about 6 inches, so that's something that Martin's not had to deal with before. I think I looked at when I'd done tape on this fight, and Martin has never been, I don't think he's ever been at a reach disadvantage before, except for, I think it was the Emeev fight. I think Emeev had 2 or 3 inches on him. But this is one of those fights where he is going to be at a big reach disadvantage, and he's going to have someone that does move as well. So obviously in the past we have seen Neil Magny affected by calf kicks. We saw it against Ponzinibbio and Lorenz Larkin, but they're 2 pressure fighters. Well, Lorenz can be a pressure fighter when he's on. The guy's on, and he was on that night against Magny, and he was very aggressive. And Ponzinibbio, we know, is a pressure striker. Rocco's style is a bit different. I mean, he does time that calf kick well, but we saw against Lee. So Magny had a long time off. I think it was 15 or 18 months. Came back against Lee. I didn't honestly know what to expect from Magny, and he put in a career best performance, or one of his career best performances. Looked really solid. He was moving out of the way of the kicks. He was using his range well, but he was also coming in, clinching, working well in the clinch. He's got a very good body lock takedown. Was using it on Lee. You see him use it against Carlos Condit. If you go all the way back, he used it against Kelvin Gastelum. He's got a very good body lock takedown. So it'd be interesting to see if he wants to use that against Rocco. Now, Rocco's very good grappling. We haven't really seen it used defensively at welterweight, but we have seen him, when he's been taken down, he's very active, looking for submissions and things. So you've got to respect the guy's ground game. He's a good grappler, Rocco. So this is a really interesting fight. It's one of the more interesting fights on the card for me personally. How is Rocco going to deal with the reach disadvantage? How is Neil Magny going to deal with the calf kicks? Can he avoid them? We've seen it be a problem for him before. He's very big for welterweight. He's got long, skinny legs. So it's a potential issue for Magny if Rocco starts landing them. But he does have that great reach advantage. And will Magny be happy to mix in the clinch here like he normally does? Close the distance, take the body lock. Will he be happy to look for the takedowns, or just lean on Martin, just working from the clinch, use his knees, rack up the points? So it's a very closely contested fight, this one. This is one I'm really looking forward to. I'm leaning towards Neil. I think the reach advantage is big here for him. I think it could frustrate Rocco. He's going to need to get his calf. If he can't get the calf kicks going, then I think it's a difficult fight for him. And I don't like relying on someone who I feel really needs. I mean, these calf kicks are a bastard. Saw it, as I mentioned earlier, with the Morales fight. Gutierrez, just the very first one, just seemed to screw him up. But it is one weapon. Now, I'm not saying that's all Martin's got. Will he look for takedowns here? He hasn't at all at welterweight. I think he's probably going to look just to strike. But he is at that reach disadvantage. So what happens when he's falling short with that right hand that he's got, and Magny's maybe landing on him? It's a very intriguing fight, this one. But I'm leaning towards Neil here. I just think he can mix it up a bit better. The reach, the range, come inside in the clinch. If he can stay enough on the outside to that Rocco can't. I think what Magny has to do, he has to either stay far enough on the outside that Rocco can't land the kicks, and when he comes inside, he needs to come inside into the clinch, where obviously Rocco can't land the kicks. I think that's got to be the strategy for Neil here. I think he's got to mix the two up. That would be my strategy for him, because he is good in the clinch, he works well there, and he's got that very good body lock takedown. Mix in some takedowns. You've got to be careful with Rocco, but you know, take him down against the fence. It's not really a submission threat if you're against the fence, and that's where Magny hits his takedowns. Even if Rocco gets up quickly, you know, it's still tots up points with the judges. It still gets Rocco double thinking as well. Like, he's got to worry about the striking and the takedowns, and like he was doing against Lee, he's good at landing strikes as people are getting back to their feet, and because he's got such a long reach, he can reach around, he can grab the other wrist, so as you're standing up, you can't defend your face. He can land some good strikes. He's got some good techniques he uses because of his leverage, Neil. So yeah, I'm leaning Neil here. The line at the moment, it's been bet up from where it was originally. Neil's held it around -140, -150 for a while now. I really don't know what way the line's going to move. I think Neil Magny has the most wins out of anyone in UFC history as an underdog. So he is a favourite here. So is he going to wet the bed? No, he's a favourite, because he hardly ever is a favourite. But I'm going to pick Neil Magny here. He's probably going to win a decision. So decision line for Neil, what's that at? Neil decision. It's even money. Just take the money line, guys. If you like Magny, don't mess around. Martin decision is like, it's plus 260. That's quite wide. I didn't think it would be that wide for a decision for Martin, but I'm going to pick Neil Magny to win via decision here, and I've got no idea what way the line's going to move. Fight week, we're in fight week now, but normally you get some action the last few days. But honestly, I've got no idea what way this money line moves. Neil shouldn't go out to being a bigger favourite than where he's at currently. So I would, if I had to guess, I'd say money are coming on Martin, but we'll see. Next fight, we've got Aljamain Sterling against Cory Sandhagen. I wish this was a main event for another event. Look, for me, this is a 50-50, guys. The way the line's gone, I thought money was going to come in on Cory, but it's actually Aljamain that's gone out to the -120 favourite, which it's kind of surprised me. I mean, I lean Aljo here, but I saw a lot of people online liking Sandhagen. Some people I speak to like Sandhagen. But it's a very hard fight to call. Sandhagen, really good striker. He's got some of the best footwork I've seen in MMA. He switches stances really well. Goes to the body with his hands like very few I've seen in MMA. Real good. He crowds you. He doesn't want to give you any space. Despite being a long guy, he actually likes fighting you in the pocket, which is quite surprising. But it works really well for him. Aljamain, his stand-up has come a long way. Just, you know, watch his last fight against Pedro Nunes. He outstrikes Pedro, and it's a competitive fight, but he wins it 30-27. He doesn't, you know, he didn't want to mess around shooting for takedowns on Pedro because of that guillotine, and Pedro's such a good grappler. Just stood with him and outstruck him. He's very awkward. Aljamain can also fight out of both stances. He throws a lot of kicks. His striking's, even his hands have improved. They still look a little bit awkward, but it works. You know, people just aren't prepared for it. He had Brett Johns hurt with his hands. He had Jimmy Rivera hurt with his hands. And what Aljamain does best of all is he disrupts rhythm very well, because you don't know whether he's going to shoot or whether he's going to throw hands. He's got good wrestling and he's got very good grappling. Cory Sandhagen, he scrambled very well against Assunção. Assunção managed to get him down numerous times, scrambled well. He engaged in the grappling in the second round. When I rewatched that fight, he actually done fine, but I don't know if it was the smartest thing to do. Instead of engaging in the grappling, maybe he should have just got back to his feet. But you know, he was comfortable there and he done fine. But you know, if I was betting him here, I definitely wouldn't want him engaging in the grappling with Aljamain. I think Aljamain's one of the better MMA grapplers in this weight division. He's very good on the mat, so I'd want him to be looking to disengage ASAP here. Aljamain, is coming off of a wrist surgery. He's not fought for like a year. He's had some problems with that wrist, so I wonder if that's going to play any part of this. I don't know. I don't like kind of basing anything off of injuries because it's just speculation on my part, but that's something just to bear in mind here with regards to Aljamain. It's in the smaller cage as well, so I mean that will suit Cory's style with his pressure striking, but at the same time Aljamain, he likes to use the fence to hold you against the fence and work his takedowns on the fence. He normally shoot for a single and drive you into the fence. In the smaller cage, it's going to be easier for him to put you against the fence because there's less distance to cover. So I'm not really sure where the advantage lies in terms of the small cage here, or who it lies to. I can see where the advantage is to each guy, but I'm just not sure because Aljamain will be shooting here. He will be mixing it in like he did with the Jimmy Rivera fight. He needs to keep Sandhagen guessing. I mean, Sandhagen, as I said, he engaged with Assunção on the mat. He seemed very comfortable on the mat. He didn't panic. He seemed happy there. He can be taken down though. We saw him taken down in his other UFC fight where he got the armbar in the first round. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but he got dumped on his head in that fight. So he is there to be taken down. Aljamain can hit takedowns here, but Cory does scramble up well. Can Aljamain keep him down? That's the question. On the feet, yeah, you have to favour Sandhagen, but I don't think it's the write-off that a lot of people are potentially making it out to be, because Aljamain is awkward. It's hard to prepare for that awkward kind of style. But Cory's footwork is absolutely brilliant. Some of the footwork he done against John Lineker when Lineker was pressuring him was great. But I mean, Lineker did start to get to him in that fight. I mean, completely different style to Aljo, but a lot of people scored that fight for Lineker. I didn't personally. I gave the first 2 rounds to Sandhagen, and a lot of people gave Assunção the 3rd round as well against Sandhagen, where he managed to kind of get the grappling going. So it's a very interesting fight. I mean, I like Aljamain here, but as I said, I think it's a 50-50 fight. So I only really see any real value if there's a plus number, and I honestly thought money would come in on Sandhagen and Aljamain would get to maybe plus 110, plus 120, where I was going to have a bet, but it's gone the other way. And Aljamain's minus 120, Sandhagen's even money. But that's not enough to tempt me to bet Sandhagen because I do lean Aljo, so I'd need a bigger plus number on Sandhagen personally. So it'd be interesting to see. My gut now says I'm not going to get the number I wanted on Aljo. I think the line probably will close around a pick'em. That's where I see it going. The over, I mean, it's minus 200. I mean, it's probably not a bad price, but I just something in my gut doesn't like it. I just think I worry if Aljamain gets on top of him, Sandhagen could be in trouble. I don't see Sandhagen stopping him. As good as his striking is, as good as he goes to the body, I don't see him stopping him. But I don't know. Something in my gut doesn't like the over. But I mean, if you look at a decision for either guy, Aljo is plus 165, Sandhagen plus 180. I mean, as I always say, don't get cute trying to bet decision lines when you've got a decent money line. But I don't think the money line is too bad. The decision line is bad for either, but if you've got a lean on the fight, guys, just put the majority of your money on the money line because it's basically a pick'em, and you know, if you want to put 10 or 20% of what you would put on the money line onto a decision for either, I don't think that's the worst decision in the world because I do think this goes the distance. Next, Cody, Garbrandt, Raphael, Assunção, the co-main event. So what Cody are we going to get? This is the question here. He's made some changes, which I think is positive. He hasn't left Alpha Male, but he did go out and train with Mark Henry. I assume his camp's been disrupted by the whole COVID situation, but I think it was good for him to go and get a different look. Go and see someone like Mark Henry, really good striking coach. But the problem with Cody, he's got great speed, he's got great movement, he's got great power. It's just that red mist. Now, it isn't a new thing for him to stand in the pocket and trade. Even when you go back and watch his fights pre-TJ, there are moments in other fights where he does hold his feet in the pocket and trade, but no one really picked up on it because he was landing the punches first and knocking guys out because he hit so hard. So, that's always been part of his game. Was he over emotionally invested in both TJ fights? Possibly. But was he stupid for doing the exact same thing in fight number 2 that he done in fight number 1? Yeah, it was just, why would you do the exact same thing that got you knocked out in the first fight and the second fight? You've got to rein it in, man. You're a professional fighter. You're fighting for a world title. You've got to rise above it. You've got to keep that red mist in check. And then Pedro Munoz, he comes out and he tries to brawl with Pedro, who, of course he's quicker, of course he's a better striker, but Pedro's just got an iron chin, man. You can't be trying to trade with that guy. The only benefit of the doubt I can give Cody is that his calf was feeling very compromised and he felt that he needed the KO, otherwise he wasn't going to be able to win the fight. That's the only small slimmer of hope that I can hold out in that fight, because what he done was just ludicrous. Got up to his feet, threw the flying knee, and then just went into bazooka mode. Thought he could, he has got ridiculous power, and most people he probably would have flatlined, because just before he gets knocked out, he lands a huge left hook, but it didn't even budge Pedro. You just can't go into that mode against someone like Pedro Munoz. You've got to stay disciplined. Now, he did have success with the calf kicks in that fight, Pedro, but Pedro's very good with calf kicks. What I noticed from going back and watching Cody fights is he's really good at countering kicks normally, like really good. He had real great success against Dominic Cruz, countering his kicks. He's got really good timing, but Pedro's just one of them, that small handful of fighters that has just really perfected the calf kick. He's really good at it. So he's taken on Raphael Assunção, who we all know Raphael, veteran of the game. No one's ever really talking about Raphael because he doesn't go out there and set the world alight. But he's a consummate professional, very well rounded. He's been around a long time, knows what he's doing in there. He knows how to win fights. But he is almost 38 years of age. That's very, very old for a bantamweight fighter. A guy fighting at 135 pounds. He's coming off back-to-back losses. Marlon Moraes put him away in round 1. Funnily enough, Marlon caught him with 2 right hands. Landed the right hand, landed a right hand after. Cody Garbrandt's best punch is the right hand, just saying. Then followed him to the ground and got the submission. And Cory Sandhagen, just too much on the feet for him. He tried to go the grappling route with Cory, and rightly so, but Cory more than held his own on the grappling front. Before that, he had a good win over Rob Font. Fought smartly, used his grappling in that fight, managed to come away with a decision. But it's a couple of years ago, and that's a long time when you're a bantamweight and you're almost 38 years of age. So I just wonder where Raphael is at now in his career, being at that age. I have to favour Cody here. Now, look, if Cody goes out and fights like a lunatic again, then he's just literally, I think I would peg him as the dumbest fighter I've ever come across, the dumbest high-level fighter I've ever come across. But even if he does that, I still favour him against Raphael, because he's got the speed, he's got the power. I mean, like Cody had against Pedro. But now Raphael's durable. I'm not saying this guy's got a bad chin or anything, but he's 38 years of age. He's only been stopped the once. I'm just looking who that was by. It was Eric Koch back in 2011. I don't even remember that fight. So, he's not an easy guy to put away, but Father Time waits for no man, and in MMA, in a long MMA career, you'll do very well to only be knocked out once. So maybe one's due, and he did get dropped by Marlon Moraes. Was he showing his age against Cory a little bit? I think potentially, but Cory is very good, so I don't want to just put that down to Raphael aging. Cory Sandhagen is a very good fighter. I think Cody here will fight disciplined. I think he has to for his career. Even if he comes out, goes into lunatic mode and wins, I mean, he's learnt nothing if he does that, and he's never going to win the title again if he does that. He just needs to come out here and fight smart, use his speed advantage over Raphael, in and out, counter the kicks Raphael throws, as he's done in his career very well. If the knockout comes, it comes. Don't force it, Cody. Now, I understand that I think Mark Henry's going to be in his corner, so that is a positive. I think Mark Henry is the kind of guy that exudes a calming influence. So I'm really interested to see what version of Cody we get here. But I have to lean him. I think he will come out and fight smart. I think he'll fight disciplined. If the knockout comes, it comes. But what I'd really like to see from Cody here is him not to get the knockout. I'd like to just see a disciplined performance over 3 rounds where he wins a decision. I think that will go a long way for his confidence. I think it will go a long way to shut up a lot of the doubters. And obviously we'll talk about Cody's chin. You know, I don't know if his chin's terrible, but you know, he's been inviting those question marks himself by the way he's been fighting. And Raphael, I'm not saying Raphael is pillow fisted. He's not. He can crack, but you know, he's got 4 knockout wins in his whole career. Raphael, he's not a big puncher. So if Cody goes out here and gets knocked out by Raphael Assunção, I don't know where he goes, because it'll be 4 losses in a row. Will the UFC keep him? They might give him one more fight just because he is entertaining. But like, where do you go? I mean, another knockout loss. It's just, you know, you're starting to pile up damage, and you're a bantamweight fighter as well. You know, your window's small, because someone like Cody, who relies on his speed and reflexes, that will go a lot sooner than the style with someone like Raphael Assunção. You know, Cody isn't going to be as competitive as Raphael is when he's 37, 38 years of age. His style isn't a Raphael style. It's not really got longevity late into your 30s at that weight class. So I really hope we see a disciplined performance here, because I'd like to see Cody back and firing on all cylinders. Raphael, veteran of the game, but you know, his career's coming to an end. I'd like to see the younger guy here come out, fight smart, show that he's got an alternative version to what we've seen, and get the W. And I think he will. I think he will come out and fight smart. I think he's getting Raphael at the right time, and I'm gonna go with Cody to get the W here. I could have absolute egg on my face next week if Cody comes out and fights like a lunatic, but I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that he won't. Main event, guys. I haven't done any tape on this, I'll be completely honest, just because, you know, there's no value in the money line on Amanda Nunes. She's a -600 favourite. If there's any value on this fight, for me, it's looking at the overs. The over is set at 1.5. It's actually up to -200. There might be some value on the under now, you know, +160. Just because Amanda Nunes either wins in round 1 or she wins a decision. But when you look at, you know, the only girls that are taking her the distance are like the creme de la Montfort. I know GDR did last fight, but GDR's a world-class striker. That was always going to be a difficult fight on the feet for Amanda Nunes. A lot of people liked GDR in that fight, and rightly so. She showed she was very live, but she just couldn't stop the takedowns. Felicia Spencer doesn't have much in the way of a striking game. She is more of a grappler, but against Cyborg she came across as extremely durable. Now I think Amanda Nunes is a bigger puncher than Cyborg, but she's going to have to withstand potentially a lot of pressure in round 1. Now, we did see Amanda Nunes' cardio issues rear their head again against GDR. It's something she's never going to fully solve, not in a high-paced fight. And that is Felicia Spencer's path here. Is she's going to have to take some heavy shots, but she's going to have to keep coming, push a crazy pace, like she did against Cyborg, and hope Amanda doesn't knock her out and Amanda gets tired, and then perhaps there will be a space for her. But it's difficult to bet against Amanda Nunes here, because stylistically it's a good fight for her. She can win this fight on the feet handily. can Felicia stand up to the pressure? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to pick Amanda Nunes here, but I'm definitely looking for certain things in here, such as Amanda not getting a knockout in round 1, Felicia bringing a high pace, and any sign of Amanda Nunes slowing in the first couple of rounds will potentially be my token to live bet Felicia Spencer. But I mean, the over's too wide for me now. I was looking at the over, but when you look at Amanda Nunes' record, when she's fighting grapplers, she just squashes them. I mean, let's look at her record. So last fight against Jamanda Randomly went the distance, but GDR's a striker. Holly Holmes, striker, but she knocked her out in round 1. Before that, Raquel Pennington, she's a striker. That went to the 5th round. Valentina is a striker. But then grapplers, Ronda, Meerschaert, Sarah McMahon, just took them all out in the first round. So, is Felicia going to be able to stand up to it? Honestly, I can't bet the over now. It's too wide. And I wonder if Amanda's going to be a little bit more cautious here in view of her gas tank. She might be a little bit worried after the GDR fight. So honestly, guys, I don't know whether I don't even know if the under does hold any value. I think this fight's just a pass from me on a betting angle. If you do live bet, I think it's definitely there is the potential it could be a good live bet, because I think Amanda's line is a bit too wide. Felicia is a tough girl, and Nunes, she's had in high pace fights, she has cardio issues, so it just depends if Felicia can push a high pace, take a bit of a beating the first few rounds, and then come on strong. It could potentially get interesting, but for me, it's a live bet fight. So that's the whole card broken down, guys. If you're interested in subscribing to the service, where I have live betting for the UFC on Saturday, as well as some pre-bets, Pro MMA Betting.com, all the packages are on there under premium bets. You can see all the different packages, but as I said right at the start, the value in the service is, with a long-term viewpoint, it's £195 for the year. Last year, £100 per unit bettors won, £14,500, and we should have a full strength of schedule back by July/August at the latest, with the boxing returning and the other MMA events like your Bettors, etc. So full steam ahead, and hopefully we'll have an uninterrupted final 6 months of the year, and we can forget what's been a forgetful year, unfortunately, due to world events and even what's going on now. It's still a bit of a sad state, but I don't want to get into politics. But yeah, sporting events are returning, so we'll have a full strength of schedule back, so hopefully we can start making some money, and I'm looking forward to this card. It should be an entertaining card. The UFC have done well to stack this card this quickly. I'm currently capping the June the 13th card. There's only 8 fights for the card at the moment, so hoping that they probably add on another 3 fights. I guess we seem to be getting 11 fights at the moment on most cards, so hopefully we get those extra 3 fights soon. I should have that card capped in a couple of days. So yeah, the grind continues, guys. We'll keep moving ahead and making profit. All of our bets are tracked, as I always say. There's 3 links below this video to the trackers, and you can also find all the links on our website, prommmabetting.com. Good luck, guys. Good luck with your bets. I hope you make some money, and I'll be back next week.